Hi all. Our notable game today is another game of the Grand Prix attack, and it's the last of this week, this special week. I hope you've really enjoyed it. Maybe in other weeks I might be doing for Reddit other opening systems, and you can get again a set of games related to a particular opening. I thought we should end with a game on David Rumens, who really vitalised the system, and for it to be actually called the Grand Prix attack, based on him winning 2 of the British Grand Prix. Now this game here is of David Rumens playing white against John Kennedy in the Smith & Williamson British Championship in Scarborough in 2001. We have e4, c5, knight c3, after knight c6 the f4 move, the Grand Prix attack system, g6, we have knight f3, bishop g7, bishop b5, and you might be wondering what happens if black plays knight d4. We have an example here, knight d4. Now in a light book, actually the most common move is just to leave the bishop there on b5 to be taken. So if you castle this position, black can play d5, and you can respond here with either e5 or ed. For example, e5, a position like this. Although black's got the bishop pair, this bishop seems quite hemmed in, and this is a line to consider. For example, like that. It's not so bad to play e5 under those circumstances. But also, even ed, black cannot take here because of knight c7. This is just from a theoretical point of view. But black treats it as a gambit, a6 first. And now if knight f6, d4 is a good move here, and this is worth knowing as well, this position. After knight takes d5, there's an idea of d takes c5, and I know you might think this is crazy to want to have this position as white with the treble pawns, but white's got some trump cards here. There's been some interesting games from this position, for example like this, where white's actually used the b6 square and other stuff and got an actual very good game. So that's a variation to be borne in mind as well if you want to play e takes d5. Sorry, in this line. So e takes d5. In this line, after a6, knight c3, knight f6, you can actually play d4. This is very popular, well, relatively popular. And if black plays c4, we get a line like this, which again is about equal, thought to be about equal. So yeah, so we're in an interesting line here with this knight d4, but there's another opportunity. White doesn't actually even have to castle or even take on d4. White actually in this game retreated the bishop to d3, and that looks a bit strange perhaps because it's like blocking in the c1 bishop. However, it's not the end of the world here. a6, white castles b5. Now white takes on d4. Bishop takes d4 check. And now c4. Is black usefully using his forcing moves, or is he just improving white's position? Bishop can come down to f3. Bishop b7, bishop f3. Black tries to shut down that bishop a bit with e5. But d3, these pawns are ready to be undermined with both a4 and d3. Rook c8, we have queen e1. a4 is just a nice lever to open the a file soon, potentially. Queen e7, it's not used though. Bishop d2, c takes, knight f6, and now actually a4 is used here. Bishop c6, trying to hold things together. A takes, bishop takes b5, knight takes, a takes b5, and white's got that useful battery we've seen in another Rumens game, and he uses that. Bishop b4 here, and this is awkward with this a file. You might think it's got no useful entry points at the moment, but after d6 we see rook a6 hitting d6 again. Now there are some problems for black to solve. We see rook d8, bishop a5, and the rook should have perhaps gone to c8 technically, because now the rook going to b8, we see a strong move in f takes e5. The problem is here, white is opening up this row for the knight. So black has to tread very carefully. If he takes with the pawn, he didn't. He took with the bishop. If he takes with the pawn, bishop b4, and this is a nuisance with the knight attacked here. So for example, if bishop c5, black drops a piece, and if queen d8, then rook d6, and again black is dropping a piece. So this is awkward. Rook takes d4, hitting the queen. So basically we see bishop takes e5, but the problem here is queen e3 now, threatening to trap the bishop with d4. The bishop hasn't got many squares. This is looking like a very scary position indeed for black. He actually played h5 with the idea of knight g4 to try and come to the Rashko to d4. But instead, I mean, d4 was actually playable anyway here. This is a very strong position for white. It's unclear what black can do about d4, in fact. It's just a very, very strong position. Black played h5, so we see rook a7, even stronger than d4 in many respects. Knight d7, d4 now, and it seems as though the bishop's been given an exit, but with the king still in the center, this is very dangerous for black. Can you see what white plays here to exploit the king in the center? If I give you 5 seconds to pause the video starting from now, what would you play with white here? It's a crushing, king's crushing move here. Okay, I hope you spotted this. e5 to open up the bishop for bishop c6. Black played here rook c8, trying to cover c6. But now the final move of the game is really crushing here. Remember, the d8 square is covered. Black cannot use d8 without it being taken. So black has to stop bishop c6. But here, what does white play? It seems as though it's been stopped, but what does white play here? 5 seconds starting from now. White plays it anyway. Bishop c6. And black resigned. It's really bad, this position. If rook takes, then check. And what does black do here? He's just losing material. He's going to end up losing lots of material. Let's check this position out. Knight b8. We take here, king d7. And okay, you could argue, well, hold on, the rook's protected. But rook b7 check. Yes, we want the queen. We can take the queen, and it's pretty much over after that. Yeah, so bishop c6 is an absolutely murderous move here in this final position. Yep, that's it. That move 27. So what do we get from this game? Well, all the sidelines. I hope you're not too afraid of putting your bishop on b5 for knight d4. As mentioned, you can even just leave the bishop there to be taken. Black will react then with d5, trying to exploit his bishop pair. But as mentioned, there are variations where you can consider both e5 and e takes d. So they're worthy of note. There's a strange endgame variation where you can have treble pawns but still have good compensation and interesting trump cards available, like the b6 square. So the variations bring life into this bishop b5 system. It is a great system, and it's interesting to know some of the more unusual lines with it leaving the bishop on b5 after knight d4. But in this game, the bishop actually retreated rather strangely, it seemed, to d3. But black's follow-up stuff didn't seem particularly effective. Getting the pawns aggressively like this makes them prone to undermining with both d3 and a4. White expertly used the a file in particular after that undermining to exploit the king in the center, opened up this diagonal energetically and revealing a major tactical liability here with the king still in the center. Hope you got something from it. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.